At the end of the day, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about what you've done with those accomplishments. It's about who you've lifted up, who you've made better. It's about what you've given back. Denzel Washington. Welcome to Inspire Vision. Our sole purpose is to elevate the lives of others and to inspire you to do the same.
Ashmita, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hey, it's great to have you. Great to have you on. So, what I'd love for you to do is kind of share the audience your background. What's your journey and what brought you to this point in your life where you're doing what you're doing?
Beautiful. Yeah. So I had a spiritual awakening, as a lot of people are going through right now, back in 2019. And since then, my life has changed dramatically. I used to be in a very high stress type of lifestyle, functioning like that, functioning as a mom, in my career. And throughout my awakening, it really showed me how to have inner peace and how to really root myself and become firm in who I was. And so now I'm a spiritual teacher. I teach the lessons that I've lived through, and gone through. And aside from just my teachings, I also help individuals that are in transitions in their life, be it if it's divorce or health issues or just mental instability breakdowns, navigate that with more of a spiritual, esoteric feel to it.
Okay, and what's your background as far as work? Or do you still work another job or
No, no. So I was in real estate and I also had a scone business. So I was making scones and selling them and doing that wholesale. And after the awakening, I have transitioned out and I have Eva and Isla, which is a holistic brand and it's international. We sell things such as Palo Santo and sage and birch charts, and everything's very eco-friendly, and it's all from natural resources. So we're very careful about our sourcing. But I also am doing my spiritual side of the work, the teachings and the consultations and the one-on-ones as well.
Okay, so one of the things I was talking to my daughter the other day, and she was laughing because we were talking about having conversations. And she says, Dad, she says, you know what? I would get in so much trouble with one of my friends because every time I was talking, if I said something and I thought may not be understood, I'd define it. And then she said, my friend got so upset because she felt like I was believing she wasn't smart enough to understand. And but she said, but I got that from you, and she did because I learned long years ago in communication, definition really helps to understand. So I'd like you to define spirituality.
Yeah, actually, a lot of people ask, are you spiritual? And this is a question that's being commonly asked to a lot of people out there right now. Are you spiritual? How spiritual are you? We're all spirit. And so it's not, spirituality is not something that you choose to be. It's something that we just are by nature. It's just a matter of how much we practice and tune ourselves into our spirituality. Spirituality to me is really when you allow your intuition to come through into your everyday life. And so we have intellect from the outside world in a more grounded sense. And I find that being spiritual is just connecting with your spirit, connecting with your intuition, allowing that to flow through you. So
And
that's
how much
probably,
is there a religious aspect of that as far as believing in a God or believing that we truly are that spirit within us, which we have the light within us? How much of that is within your definition?
oh man, that's a deep question because
Yeah,
that
I
is
warned you.
one. Yeah, no, that's great. It's great. You know what? It's one of those questions where there's not one definitive answer. There's so much to it because religion, at the base of all religion, it's that there's something bigger than us. However, a lot of the religions have, in my opinion, contorted it to make it seem as it's separate then, and it's not. We're, in my opinion, it's not. We're interconnected and it's all one. It's just the way that it's been presented. So the presentation, the aspect of religion is believe in a higher power, be a good person, be light, right? Essentially, it's be light. And when it comes down to religion, it becomes more of a controlled type of an atmosphere. And that's also why a lot of people are going through that dismantling of self and religion and coming out of their practices because there's certain things that they don't agree with. There's certain things in religion that make them feel contracted, and they're going towards more of a inner dialogue, which is making them feel expanded. So religion, I think it plays its role in terms of allowing individuals to get to a certain place where they can then seek more. And religion and spirituality can go hand in hand. It's just how much of a man-made version of religion have we been fed in a sense.
Well,
And
and
yeah.
it's interesting as I see, I'm on TikTok with my social media, and every once in a while when I go on there, I see these anti-religious things. And what strikes me, and this may have some pertinence to what we're going to talk about, I don't know, but what strikes me is that so often when people leave their quote religion, and I don't disagree with what you were saying, by the way, but when they leave that spiritual connection also. And it's fascinating to me. For instance, I happen to have a very deep and devout belief in Christ. Would I call myself a Christian? No, because I don't like that label. But I have a belief in Christ. But what I believe is, and you hit on it with some of the words you said, is when we can become one with Him. And so really that lies within us. But why do you think it is that people have to be an either or? Because what I see is people go from religious or some type of belief, and for whatever reason, valid, that they decide to leave. Once they leave that spirituality part of it too. Why do you think that is? And how do you help those people to get back into understanding that, you can leave the organization, but you don't have to leave that connection?
All right, let's put it in this way. Imagine that there's somebody growing up in a very controlled and strict environment where they're not allowed to do anything. Actually, to even put it into more of a perspective, some of the Amish communities, they have a lot of rules and restrictions for the youth, and they have, I can't recall what the ceremony is, but it's when they go out and they get to see how the English are living. And so they go out and they basically decide if they want to stay in their Amish community or they want to convert and leave. And when they do go out, when people from that strict atmosphere go out, they go wild. It's almost like there's no barriers, and because you've been so constricted and so tight, when you want to blow off that steam, there's no boundaries. So where if you're say that you're in a medium control type of environment and you're going out for the evening, you might have a couple drinks or whatever and have, a nice time. When somebody hasn't had that and they don't know the boundaries, they don't know that they don't understand the effects of it on them. They may have one too many drinks plus say a drug plus they're not aware of their surroundings, so they might get caught up in something and it gets out of control really fast, or it works as polar opposites. So either really constricted, and when they don't know that, they go all the way to the other side to where it gets so wild. The sensible thing is to be able to meet in the middle, know how to have a good time, but still have that head on your shoulders. So just like when they leave religion, they try to leave all aspects of religion. They try to leave the controlled aspects of it but also the higher power that they're being taught within it, because they may not know that there's a middle ground. They might think it's either this, and if I'm not a good, whatever the religion is, whatever they're practicing, then I'm nothing related to it.
Okay.
And you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's kind of, and that happens with when kids are going through that rebellious stage as well. Sometimes it goes a little bit too far if they're trying to literally rebel from something. And so sometimes it just takes a little bit of time to get their footing back. And then they might find that when they go and there is no structure and it's very different from what they're used to, that they're uncomfortable there just as they were uncomfortable when it was tight. So then they just work their way back and adjust accordingly.
So how do you you talked about your spiritual awakening. Are you okay to share what that was and how that literally changed your direction?
Oh yeah, I had this cycle that would keep repeating, which was I would really get inspired to do something and work really, really hard, but I would keep getting sick. And it would not make sense. I'd go to the doctor, I'd go to the hospital. They couldn't really find out what's going on with me. It was as if my body was turning on itself. But uh, that would just cause me more stress, and then that would make it worse. And it got to the point of paralysis and having these hemiplegic migraines and having really bad bouts of my stomach would bloat up, literally as if I was 9 months pregnant, with extreme pain. Would go for ultrasounds and these things, they just couldn't figure it out because it would go away. So it would come and go and come and go. And I was in that hustle type of lifestyle, trying to be a mom, do the career thing, be a wife, and just have everything very perfect. And as you know, there is no perfection. We're chasing something that we're never going to reach because what we associate with perfection is not in the realm of actual reality. And so for me, it was just a breakdown of high stress, medical issues, and everything just kind of came to a halt where I had to turn inwards and just start meditating. And as I started meditating, I started realizing that I was having this energy kind of come through my spine and go up my back. And at first, it was a little bit scary because I would have these moments of deep vibration in my body and I didn't know what it was. And here I am thinking, oh, great, it's another medical issue. And so I would say to my husband, do you feel me? Do you feel me shaking? I think I'm shaking. And he couldn't. And slowly and day by day, it was going a little higher, a little higher. And one day I was meditating and I heard a pop. And it was like I could hear it and I can feel it at the same time. And it was right at the top of my head, like right on the crown. And when that happened, this gateway, this veil lifted, and I would get downloads, and I'd be able to hear my guides, and I'd have channels coming through, and all this information, which then made me think I was going completely insane. Because all of a sudden, for me, everything opened at once. It wasn't a gradual type of thing. Everything just went boom, opened up. And now I'm hearing things and knowing things and not knowing how I know things and feeling things and by the way, I was postpartum, so I did think this was postpartum psychosis. I said to my
Yeah,
husband,
yeah.
I think I'm going insane. And the people that were coming through and things, I had people that had passed away that were coming through, and I thought I'm going crazy. And my husband goes, if you were going crazy, you would not have been able to tell me where my grandfather, that I've never met, had kept his umbrella, the type of umbrella, and the fact that he kept it in his kitchen behind the door. And you wouldn't have been able to tell me the lamp that he had or where I used to put my backpack in his kitchen. And they were things that you don't know if you're just thinking or guessing And so you don't know the accuracy until it you bring it out of your mouth and actually tell people and they can confirm it for you. So that was a little bit terrifying because I didn't know if it was like a judgment that I judging somebody by having this feeling or this thought or this knowing about them. But when I would get past that and introduce to them what was coming through for me, then they were able to say yay or nay or whatever have you, and it was accurate, and that was telling, but it takes some getting used to.
Well, and yeah, that is wild. I've never experienced that. I know other people who have, and what comes to my mind is it's so interesting that people will yeah poo poo not believe that type of thing. But for me, and being very much theologically focused, I recognize that there is this consciousness. There's this eternal consciousness that exists, and if an individual is able to tap into that, there is no time. There is no time. Past, present, future is all there. So to be able to tap into that is just to me amazing that you could tap into that and be aware of those instances before and so on and so forth. So when you start to work with people, how how do you explain to them? Because, it's one thing to be experiencing this, it's another thing to kind of have an understanding of what's life really all about. What is the meaning of life? Why are we here? What are we here to learn? And so, as you talk to people, what do you feel like the meaning of life really is?
Oh yeah, the meaning of life is beautiful. It is that life is absolutely meaningless. It is absolutely meaningless. We get to assign the meaning behind our lives. We really get to assign it. And so another thing that kind of goes hand in hand with that is purpose,
Hmm.
because they're looking for the purpose. And a lot of people go on crazy adventures and leave certain things, and they go on this tailspin trying to find what their purpose is. And our purpose for all of us, in my opinion, is the same. It's that we're all here to expand, just expand and live a life of expansion and inspiration. And so, what does that mean? It means simply to not live a life out of fear, guilt, or obligation. You want to
Well,
live
yeah.
your life doing things, and no, not in a unrealistic way where, say for instance, you say I go to work because I have to go to work because I have my children that I have to take care of. Well, that's a very expansive feeling if, say, you've curated this family that you love and adore, and so you get fulfillment and abundance from taking care of them. It's the way that we also perceive our lives on a day-to-day basis.
Well, and I love what you're talking about. You use a couple of words. You use perfection, you use
Yeah.
expand. And, to me, I think that what has happened with this common thought of perfection, I think it's come religiously. I really do, because you have, be there for perfect and all that kind of stuff. But you get to the root meaning of what was actually said. It wasn't perfection. It was completeness. It was expansion. And so I think you hit it right on the head that we're here to become complete, to expand uh, our spirit within us, because we have this physical body that has all sorts of things. You talk about people wanting this, people wanting that. Talk about ego. What does the ego do to us, and how do we overcome the ego aspects that are not beneficial to us so that we can truly expand internally and really become who we ought to become or can
Uh,
become?
yeah. Ego is not our foe, and it is so misunderstood. When I had my awakening, the way that I actually had channeled ego is that it is anything that's absorbed from outside of us through our senses. So things that we've seen, things that, for instance, your family, that's something that's so close to us, right? Our kids, our spouse, our parents. So that is also ego. It's something that we have learned from outside of us, that this is what family looks like. This is what family is supposed to mean to us. So even that can be ego, just as much as a car, or just as much as something monetary that we would think ego coincides with. So ego is all those things that can make your human experience very abundant for you. And so it's not a bad thing if you know where it's coming from. It's not a bad thing if you can play with it. See, it comes down to the understanding of self. A lot of things, we're going to go more into this in the coming years, but it's going to go into really understanding who we are, what we are, and why we are. Because we're here as light to expand. We're not here as a wife or a husband or a business associate or anything like that. We're here to expand as an individual. And what that means is up to us to assign. But when we work with the ego, we get caught up thinking that the ego is us. The person driving the nice car is us. The person without the car is us.
Well, and it's fascinating. A couple of weeks ago, I interviewed a fellow from Africa, and he's now in the United States and has become educated and so forth. But he comes from an extremely poor village, and one of his goals now is to be able to help those folks. But as we were talking, it was interesting how he brought up this point. He says, here in the U.S., and this goes to ego, here in the U.S., you know, we have to have everything. I mean, if you don't have X amount of dollars coming in, you're poor and so forth. And we were kind of joking about it, but being real too, because I'm in Thailand, okay? And here, people, if they're earning four, three, four, $500 a month, they're living comfortably. For him, he says the average person there in his village was $100 a month. Okay. He said, but he brought up this point. He says, but the amazing thing is that they're happy. They're happy. Now we look at the United States and oh my goodness, if you're not earning X amount of dollars, you're not happy. If you don't have the nice car, if you don't have the nice house, if you don't have this, if you don't have that, you're not happy. How do you help people to overcome this concept of I need this to be happy?
Oh man, you know what? This has been less of an uptick actually than the opposite because more of the people coming through right now have achieved that and they're not happy.
Well,
More
that's my point. Yeah,
that's
they
yes.
have it and they're not happy, or they don't have it and they're not happy. Either way.
Yeah, either way. I think that it ultimately comes down to knowing yourself. I say that there's two different things that we don't realize. There's abundance and there's fulfillment. And so fulfillment is when we are in touch, knowing that we are like, when I say light, I mean we are whole. We are already whole. So if you want that abundance in your life, you can only want what you already have felt. You won't crave something to eat if you've never eaten it before or tasted that type of a flavor. You can't crave it. You wouldn't know to crave it. So if there's a feeling that you want to aspire to, then that means you already have that within you. You felt that abundance. It's internal. The things on the outside are just these icons. And when you start to live in the vibration of what you already want, what you want to feel, you just stay in that internal vibration, then you're going to see things changing on the outside of you as well. But if you're constantly in that lack mentality, you're constantly in the I need these things, it's not the thing. The things are never going to be enough. You can get all the things, they're just not going to be enough. And so you challenge them. You tell them, hey, imagine yourself. You typically with something like that, I'd want to bring them into a deep meditative state to have
Hmm.
them go in and feel what it would mean to have those things, and then ask them what it would feel like when it gets taken away from them. Okay, so is it really yours if it can be taken away? Because if you own it, if that is truly a part of your soul, it cannot be taken away. It cannot be broken. These things are part of the human experience to have, to enjoy, but to understand that it shouldn't have that attachment that we've been taught to give it, that amount of weight in our life, right? It shouldn't have that type of force. So when they're seeing more and more that there's individuals coming out that have reached this sense of peace, they're going to start to ultimately look inside of themselves. And with us changing from the Piscean era to the Aquarian era, before it was all about outside obtainment and obtaining scholarships or different degrees and different jobs and all these different things. It was all about obtainment. And now it's all going within. The Aquarian era is very much more in the air and in intuition. And so people are going more in, they're trying to leave these religions and find what really resonates with them on a personal soul level. So we're seeing it kind of shift already, and it's going
A
to
little
continue
bit.
to do so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so one of the things that I'm fascinated about is I know you have some interesting stories. And as we talk about people's life experiences, about the energy that they experience and so forth, one of the things that you talk about in one of the stories that I want you to share with us is how those imprints from childhood, those things that happen that are oftentimes so totally subconscious that we don't even realize, and yet our lives are merely a reflection of those limiting beliefs that then create our behavior. And so I know you have one story where you talked about you were working with someone who was had patterns of overindulgence. Could you share with the audience that story and how you helped them and how they overcame that? Because I think we all experience that one way or another.
Yeah, yeah. First, I'd like to start by just also letting the audience know that when we do go through different challenges in our life, whether it be childhood or in adulthood, these things are agreed upon at a soul level to help us further along our expansion in this human experience. So sometimes it's very challenging, sometimes it's not as challenging. The imprints are just meant to give us that contraction so that we can expand, because you can't have one without the other for this experiment to work. There's actually a couple that I've had. So there was one where it was imprinted on them, where they basically played out their parents' dynamic, but now in a form of addiction. And so the same dynamics that they had felt once with their parents is how they were viewing their addiction. And they didn't know that they had turned into that same type of cycle that they were going through. But the overindulgence is, it's something that we don't realize, that we think now that we're adults that we can, now that we have the resources to go out and get what we need to get, and to enjoy the things when we want to enjoy the things, that there's still a backstory to why we want to. One of the stories I can share is that there was an individual who worked really, really hard. And whenever they did, they didn't get paid by their parents. What they did get was a lot of fast food. That was their reward for the work that they were doing at the family's establishment. It was the fast food. And so coming into their adulthood, they would just overindulge and overindulge in bad health habits, thinking that that's what abundance, that's what success, that's what comfort looked like to them. And they didn't realize that it was because before they would get nothing but that. And they bought that imprint with them into their adulthood as well, to a state where they weren't happy. They were overindulging in quite a bit of different things, which was hurting their health and making them unhappy in different ways, making them feel less than, which was all the things that they felt when they were younger, because they were doing everything and it felt forced on them. They had so much responsibility. They didn't feel, they had a lack of confidence because their life was so curated by a parent figure that they felt like they had no sense of self. So their little bit of joy came from this bad habit that was very easy for the parents to kind of, here you go, thanks for your help. But now in their adulthood, they still didn't have that sense of self. They still thought that these things from the outside and indulging in that would bring them a sense of self. But in doing that, and in doing that in other things as well, purchasing things, shopping, they were consuming and consuming to where they started to realize they were getting in debt. Their body was getting out of control. All these things were outside of their control because now they thought that they were in control of their life finally. So it was really interesting and just bringing it back down and showing them that the reason that you are purchasing, the reason that you are eating, the reason that you are taking all these things from outside of you and putting it internally is because of that lack of control. And it kind of goes to what we were speaking about with the religion as well, right? Sometimes you go from here all the way to here when you feel like you have that leeway to play with because you don't know that there can be a very healthy middle ground.
So we all experience that to some degree. I don't know that anyone that's human has not experienced I'm not good enough or whatever that happens to be. And I think that insight that you had there is amazing. So how do you help them to repurpose that experience or reposition that experience so that it goes away and they can use it, for instance, with growth and perhaps even recognizing that having experienced that, I can help other people who are experiencing the same thing once they overcome it. But how do you help people to reprogram that so that
Yeah.
no longer do they look at it this way, but they can look at it in a more positive way?
Yeah, so it's all alchemy. So it's really, when we even talk about healing and things like that, they're not broken, there's nothing to heal. It's really just taking that situation and showing them the opposite side and the alchemy between it. I could tell you for this individual, they were such a great resource for bridging the gap for other people. Their internal compass, their gift to this world is bridging a gap. So they had to bridge that gap between what they were truly feeling in lack of and what they were over consuming, and bridge the gap between where would they find that middle ground of being able to enjoy life knowing that they're enough. And so one of the things is on a soul level, I'm able to tap in and see it almost shows to me in a pattern like state. So I can see what their soul is here to teach them. So if I'm sitting with them, I could say right away, your soul's here to teach you to take this experience or take this feeling and alchemize it to this feeling, and that's what you're meant to share with the world. But to just say that to somebody without that middle portion of how to get from A to B gets very, very confusing. So I typically take them through the feeling. What did you feel at this moment? Why did you feel it? Okay, why do you think you felt that? And we go all the way down to the three foundations: fear, guilt, and obligation. And contraction, when they feel contraction, it always breaks down into those three, either one or all three. So we find what the root is and we alchemize it. We
All right.
simply,
Define alchemy. You keep using the word alchemy. I have no clue what you're talking about.
oh, okay. So alchemy, yeah, to turn one thing into another.
Okay.
So to turn contraction into expansion.
Got it.
Yeah. So for this individual, and it's good to talk about this one so the audience can follow along with their journey as well. When they were taking it from a state of feeling very contracted, when they had that job that they had to go to, regardless of what they wanted to do or how old they were, they had to work in that family establishment. They felt contracted all the time. They had that little bit of enjoyment when it was given to them, but once they got out of that atmosphere and that job, then they started doing it to themselves. They now had the abundance to be able to obtain those things, but when they obtained it, they still put themselves in almost like a jail-like lock because they felt like, I need these things. I need to continuously get these things to feel free. But that in itself is a lock. Do you see what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah, oh, yeah,
They put
absolutely.
themselves in that lock. So say, what is real freedom? The real freedom, the real alchemy in that situation is to understand that you are free at a soul level, at a very deep level. You are free. You don't need any of those things. The fact that you thought that you needed those things is because it was embedded to you to get to this very moment that you can free yourself from those chains. You
Okay.
thought, yeah, you thought that at one point
Yeah.
that's what you need to be free. But now, when you get those things, you realize that you've made your own imprisonment. Now let's release all of those chains, and now you're free. So now,
Okay.
when you indulge,
So
it's
yeah, you've talked about meditation, and you talk about how you've been able to insightfully understand that. What about all of these people that need or choose to do it on their own? And first of all, this pattern recognition, and how does that relate to, as there's more and more talk about, um, you know, patterns and energy and vibration and all of that type of thing. How do you help people, or how do you advise people using, for instance, and you talked about meditation, how important is meditation, and how do they recognize these patterns that are shaping their lives and recognizing that they're not good patterns? And then what process can they go through in order to change that if they're not able to, or they choose not to? And by the way, I think they should, but if they don't choose initially to get some help.
Yeah, it's a very deep, deep transformative type of process that I bring them through. And so it's not in a state where if somebody's just slightly unhappy with their life or something's bothering them, that I wouldn't consider them ready for that level of transformation. It's really for individuals that I work with when they're at a breaking point, when they've really hit rock bottom, and that alchemy time, as I spoke about, that transformation from one to another, uh, can really be held with the right amount of care and need, because it's kind of like somebody that wants to lose weight, but it's not really a major problem. They don't have as much drive, and it doesn't hurt as bad, to really make a big, big change in their life. So they might do a little things, and that might help them along, but that real transformation type of program that I run, it wouldn't be suited for that individual. So one of the things is you cannot have the transformation without clarity. So it always has to start with the clarity. And the clarity is based around understanding what we are, and that we are all one. We are from source, and how that works. How that really, really works at a soul level. How we're not separate then. How we are all one. How everything that we are experiencing is outside of ourselves. And it's not a simple thing. It's not, a couple sessions and they automatically get it unless they come in with that knowing already. It takes
Yes.
reprogramming and deprogramming and deconstruction of belief systems. Because one of the biggest things is we got to get into why you believe what you believe. Really, why do you believe it? What at the core of your belief system, where do you think you inherited it? Was it through religion? Was it through family? Was it through the education system? Where was it from? And does it really make sense for you right now? And if you could choose what your beliefs are, what would they be? So really letting them take the reins on reprogramming themselves, because if somebody is trying to transform but they're still so attached to the outside societal pressures and what society deems as correct and incorrect and all of these things, there's still this very deep attachment.
Yeah.
So
The
it's
ego. Yeah. The
yeah.
ego is right there.
Yeah, well, they have to understand what the ego's part is, because the ego is here to allow us to play as a human, to play. Because if we imagine it, say, as a video game, and we have all these fancy, shiny things everywhere, and different types of relationships, and all these kind of things, in that video game, if we weren't meant to have it and enjoy it, it wouldn't be in the video game. We're meant to have it and enjoy it, but it's not why we are. It's just things that we
It's
can
just thing,
enjoy while we're here.
and there's the key part of it is understanding that it has nothing to do with if I have this, then I am this.
Yes.
Rather, if I'm able to enjoy this is just a blessing, and I can be grateful for that. How much meditation do you use? And I think it's interesting because I think now people are starting to really understand that meditation has some great value in their lives. And how much meditation, as you're working with people, do you use for them to be able to tap into that inner light and inner self?
Half the time they don't even realize that they are meditating. Because in truth, when you're meditating, you're just going into a state of inner wisdom and quiet. And all that you're doing is removing the distortion. So sometimes it can look like the typical meditative state where you lie down and go into almost a trance-like try to state, and I talk to you through it and I do a guided meditation. And other times it's just in that silence of listening and understanding and tearing away distortion, because then they can hear that voice that's always been talking to them, but they just haven't allowed it to speak. They haven't allowed it to speak without distortion. But I do quite a bit actually of meditation, and for myself as well. I used to do a lot more meditation until I got to a state of more of an embodiment. So I'm able to kind of tap in and tap out, even if I'm washing the dishes or just being quiet. In those moments, I'm just very clear on my vessel, and I have to be to allow source to come through with the messages. So yeah, meditation is everybody's just learning that they need moments of quiet, and that quiet is not just quiet from sound, but it's quiet from thoughts, it's quiet from embedded things that we've seen and heard. It's just quiet. And then they'll feel, because the meditative state can just come through as feelings as well. And then they'll feel a pull towards something.
Well, so it's been an interesting discussion. Uh,
Yeah.
I think we could probably do this for a couple more times. There's so much to talk about. You have so much wisdom here, which I really appreciate.
Thank you.
So, as we close, what would be kind of that message that you'd like to leave with the folks that are listening?
Yeah, if you're going through anything that feels like a hard time, this is key. There is always one problem in the world that you could be going through, and there's always one solution. The problem is always an attachment, and the solution is always detachment. And that can be a very deep one to discover yourself, but the key is there is inner peace. And this is not coming from me just saying it as a spiritual teacher, but somebody that has lived through a lot of not just health issues, but just life getting very, very extremely hard. And yes, you can come out the other side and find that inner peace. It is absolutely possible.
Oh, love it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Ashmita, this has just been wonderful. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I hope it's been good for you too. I think it's interesting how as we are able to share our thoughts and our experiences with others, realizing that as we're able to do that, if we can just reach one person that
Mhm.
will change their direction in life, it's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's worth it. So anyway, thank you so much. And folks, thanks for listening. Hope you've enjoyed it. Look forward to having you join us again soon. This is Dr. Doug saying namaste.